The following show and its content are the responsibility of the show's producers and participants.
Information related in this program is not meant to substitute medical recommendations. Before starting a treatment program, you should consult your physician.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
That's right. Welcome to the Couch Live here on the Problem Solving Network, WPSN99.com. Hello, everybody. How you doing? I'm along here with my partner, of course, the Dharma guy, Trinity Phillips. Hello, Trinity.
Hey, what's going on?
Excellent.
I feel like I've seen you before.
Yep, not too long ago.
Yeah, like 10 minutes ago.
10 minutes ago. We're still together.
We are.
All right, I love it.
Like a pair of old shoes.
Like a pair of old shoes. We lost Robbie, though.
We did lose Robbie.
All right, so here's the deal. So today's show is not live, but we are on Up Live. That's right.
Look at it, special. Up Live is the only one that gets us live today.
Yeah, the only people that get us live today, because we're not on any other live right now except Up Live and that's it.
It's the only live we're at.
That's it. And according to Brett TV, I'm on the hot list for Up Live right now. So it's
cool.
blowing up as we speak.
I am not. I'm on
thank
the
you
not
very
hot
much,
list.
Brett. Well, I mean,
and that's okay. He hit me up last time.
He hit you up last time, and this time it was my turn. But anyway,
he's got like such power.
He does have a lot of power on Up Live, and if you don't know it's Brett TV, look him up on a thing called Up Live. Download the app Up Live. This segment is sponsored to you by Up Live.
Yeah, right.
That's what it sounds like.
They're paying us for this.
Yeah, and find It's Brett TV. He's great to follow. Of course, you can also find the Dope Doctor, and you can find the Dharma guy.
Right on.
And then you'd be all up to date. And, of course, on Up Live, you can talk to people from all over the world.
Yes.
Like right now, we have, 857 people on mine watching.
Well, I just started mine, so I've got 71 at the moment. Yes.
You restarted, yeah. So, anyway, this is what we got going on. And people like Melissa sending pearls and everything while you're going. I love it. All right, so this show is focused on addiction and recovery and all things in between. And so if you're joining us, maybe there's something going on in your life that you may want to talk about. And this show is sponsored by Retreat Premier Addiction Treatment Centers, Journey Pure, Orange County government right here in Florida, and, of course, the Now Matters More Foundation. So
yes, sir.
We love to give props to our sponsors and appreciate all of them, just like we appreciate Up Live and all the good people of Up Live and everything they do for us. So let's get right into it, Trinity. Now, the reason we're actually recording this show in advance, which we never do,
no,
on the
we
Couch
don't.
Live. The Couch Live is always live.
Yes, hence the Couch Live part.
The live part.
Yes.
But we're doing it recording this time, at least this part of the show. Why is that, Trinity?
Because we love our fans,
right?
And we didn't want them to do without our lovely our lovely ideas and eargasms.
Eargasms.
That's right.
That's an interesting way to put it.
That's right.
We wanted them to feel the love, right?
Exactly.
We don't want them to be without when we're on vacation.
Because it would be a little while, right? Like, because I know the next one I'll be coming back from Journey Pure,
right?
So we should be able to do some shows there for me,
right,
on Dharma time,
right.
But then shortly after that, we're both going on vacation, so I think we're going to be out of town for a little while. So if we weren't doing this, then it would be basically replays.
Yeah,
and we can't have that.
We can't have replays.
No,
you can't be called a show. You can't be called the Couch Live and then be all replays.
Exactly. We gotta have content.
You gotta have content.
The ladies dig content.
Is that what
by ladies I mean our wives?
Is that the secret?
That's exactly
the secret. All right, I believe you. All right, so the show is focused on addiction and recovery and all things in between. And last show we kind of hinted that we were going to talk about lapses and relapses today.
Yes.
The differences between lapses and relapses.
Right.
And so if anybody listening today is actually dealing with a substance abuse issue, or you have a family member who's dealing with a substance use disorder, or if you just have questions about it, just, everybody knows somebody, Trinity.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody that has a substance use disorder or is abusing substances to some degree.
Whether you're aware of it or not, you know somebody.
Right.
They probably just aren't talking to you about it, but they have it.
Right, and it's such a tough conversation. It's so difficult to ask somebody whether something's going on or not. I mean, it's easier for guys like us that are in the industry and have been around talking about it forever.
Yeah. It's kind of understood at this point, I think.
Right. Well, it's one of those things. Have you ever go to a party, Trinity, and like when they go, hey, what do you do? And if you say that you treat people with drugs and alcohol at all, if you say that, they instantly will tell you they realize for that split second that they have a drink in their hand and instantly give you some sort of excuse or reasoning why they have that drink in their hand. That ever happen to you?
The one I usually get is they'll tell me a friend or family member that was struggling.
I get that as well.
I get that as well. A lot. But and then also if I tell them anything health and fitness, they usually had. That's where I get the excuses.
What music?
That's when I get the excuses.
What music, Brett?
What music? There's no music. But no, that's where I usually get the excuses. Is if when people find out that I'm in the health and fitness world or something like that, then they will, they're eating something. They'll come up with an excuse of like, oh, well, you see, I was just hungry. I don't normally eat this way, or oh, this is my cheat day, or something like that. So I get what you're saying. But when I mentioned the drug and alcohol stuff, I typically get the whole, oh yeah, my brother's sister's uncle was dealing with that. Right. That's what I usually get.
Yeah. I'll get the. Oh, well, I don't usually drink that much. We drink, we go to these parties and stuff like that. But yeah.
I only drink when I'm with other people.
Right.
Well, that's a lot, bro.
Right. So we definitely wanted to talk a little bit today about the difference. What is it? Still loud? What is loud? What music are you listening to?
I don't know. But I'm glad we're actually doing Lapse Relapse.
But that's interesting because we need to know what he's talking about.
I don't hear any music.
There's no music playing here.
Yeah, anywhere. But I don't know, the Lapse Relapse thing, I'm glad that
There's absolutely no music, Brett. Zero music. We're not playing any music.
We're going to cut all this out later.
I know. We're just going to go ahead and play it out. See, here's the deal. We're doing the Couch Live, but we're also, the only thing that we're live on right now is this app called Up Live.
Yeah, Up Live.
And they're saying that they're hearing music, that it's still too loud, and I don't have any music. I think it's Brett's. I think it's your phone, Brett. You have music on, and you're thinking that we're doing it.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening. Because Melissa just said, I don't hear any music.
There you go.
Right. All right. So anyway, let's continue. So
I was saying that I'm glad we're doing Lapse Relapse.
Right.
Because, I was one of the ones that had an uneducated idea on it, I guess, the concept of it. Because when I hear lapse, I hear lapse of judgment.
Right.
But for me, I pictured it more of a black and white between like relapse. Like if you're in recovery, like I'll take you as an example. I know you're in recovery. So if I showed up here tomorrow and you're sitting here with like a beer in your hand drinking, I would call that a relapse.
Right.
But I guess after looking up the strictest of definitions, I'm realizing that that's not necessarily the terminology that a lot of people will use.
Right.
Although I think there's a lot of people who use my terminology as well. I think it's probably kind of split.
Right.
But I understand now that would be a lapse. If that's all you had was that one beer and you got right back and you were good to go and it had another 30 years, it would be a lapse.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I guess a relapse is what they consider to be falling off the wagon completely. Like just going right back to the path you were before and just laying here in a pile of 30 beer cans and like, I don't care. They would call that a full-on relapse. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you. Like, a part of me understands, the semantics of it, but then the other part of me is like, really? I mean, does it matter? Like, it was because like they don't qualify or quantify like a relapse for cancer. Either it comes back or it doesn't. It's not like it's not varying degrees of coming back. It's just it's either back or not.
Right.
Oh, I just answered Brett TV's phone call. Oops.
He's hearing music on his headphone.
Yeah, I don't know.
His phone.
But anyways, so I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I guess I could see the benefit of it, though.
Right.
If I'm on the receiving end, I would feel less of a failure if I only had one beer as opposed to a 12-night bender. It would make me feel better to say, oh, it was just a lapse. I mean, I'm good. Right. So I see the therapeutic benefit of that, but I don't know. I don't care enough about it to say it needs to be one way or the other. I think I would leave that up to the individual and how they define it. Because for me, from the spiritual perspective, I care more about what's next than what happened. I care more about whatever you want to call it. It's over. let's move forward, and how do we, how do we grow from it?
Well, and to be honest with you, it's more of a medical term. Right. When you say lapse or relapse, I mean the same thing in this disease state. Unfortunately, everything medical has been turned into something regular.
Right.
So alcoholism was a medical term, and then people started using the word alcoholic and alcoholism and stuff like that. So it lost its medical terminology, and so now we have alcohol use disorder, right? Because now alcoholism and all that stuff is no longer enough, right?
Sure.
So in lapse and relapse, the need for the difference, Trinity, is that for people to understand that there's a difference between addiction and physical dependence.
Yes.
Right? So with physical dependence, your tolerance is built up. Okay. And then when you have the absence of whatever you're using, you tend to go through withdrawal symptoms. You suffer some sort of symptomology when you're no longer using that substance. Okay. You no longer have that substance. Yeah. And so you are physically dependent upon that substance. That's dependence.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas addiction is more of the behaviors, the attitudes, the drug-seeking behavior, all that goes with it. So when we say lapse, if you use one time, like if I would, let's say I'd smoke a joint right now, or I would, let's say something that has a little bit more of a pull. If I did a line of cocaine right now, it's initially called a lapse because, number one, there's no physical attachment yet to it. Okay. Doing one time, there's no physical attachment to it. But the dopamine reward system did get stimulated.
Right.
And therefore, the craving and desire to want to use some more is going to come.
Right.
But if I pull back before the full disease is back up to strength, then I'm relatively safe. I'm relatively safe from that kind of harm.
Right.
From that physical harm, from the true psychological psychosis, all that psychotic thinking that existed in deep addiction. It's not going to come immediately. That stuff doesn't come immediately.
Right.
Now, it does come within hours, though, if you keep using it.
I would imagine so.
So that appears pretty immediate.
I imagine it's coming quickly.
That's pretty darn fast.
Right.
It's pretty darn fast. But if I pull back from an initial use, then in the next day I just get right back into it.
Right.
Then that's why it's considered a lapse, more because of the medical aspect. Because you don't need to go back to rehab just because you used one line.
Okay.
Right? You didn't have the insanity. You didn't have the behavior. You don't medically qualify for your acuity level, and your risk assessment is not going to qualify you for.
But I would assume
rehab.
Something would have to happen, though, right? Like maybe not full on rehab. But
you adjust the situation.
Like something would need to take place.
You evaluate your situation. You adjust where necessary. Right. So you evaluate exactly what's going on with my life. Now, how did that happen? Was it my thinking? Was it my attitude? Yeah. Was it my access? Are there reservations that I'm having that I'm not dealing with? Are there certain things that I'm no longer doing that I used to do to protect myself from these lapses? Because a lapse will turn into a relapse, and it can turn into it fairly quickly.
See, I have a list here of like 5 myths that I want to go over. Okay. Once you said this, I Googled it.
Okay.
But before I get started in that, I got to mention the one thing that bothers the hell out of me.
Okay,
I'm not in recovery. I've been in this world for a little while now.
Right.
I've got friends, and I've done things with people. Like,
right.
I heard it so many times, and it's hard for me to understand because I'm not on that end of the table, I guess. Mm-hmm. But it really bothers me, man. Why is it that when a lapse, relapse, whatever word you want to give it,
right,
if and when that does take place, they feel like such failures, man. Like they want to just throw away everything that's happened before that.
Right.
And it boggles my mind. It's like, hold up, dude. Like, if you've got like 2 years clean, let's say,
right,
that's 2 years of like hard work, dedication, learning, growth, everything that's happened in 2 years. You can't just throw that away because you made a bad judgment right now.
Right.
Like, oh, that bothers me so much. And I really sincerely wish that I had like the secret code here to kind of get into their head and be like, no, will you stop that? Like this all or nothing thing. Mm-hmm. It really bothers me, man. From a spiritual sense, as someone who just cares about his fellow man, that probably bothers me more so than anything.
Right.
Because I've seen people who've come in and out of the groups and stuff, people I genuinely care about.
Right.
I've seen come in from like day one, and I've seen them like last for a while. And then I'll see them again several months later at like another facility. And just that look at defeat on their face and the embarrassment and everything else. It bothers me, man. I'm just like, no, dude, like that is, so what? You know, it happens. You know, it's a part of life. Like, it's never going to be perfect. It happens. Like, you got to let it go and move on, man. Like, it really, really, truly bothers me. If I got to say,
I see that.
Like, it does.
I hear it.
Well, because it hurts.
Right.
It hurts because, I've seen these people. I've gotten into their lives a little bit. I've given them some advice. I've talked to them. I've seen some growth, and then to see how willing they are to quit on themselves so quickly, it's like, no, dude. Like, love yourself more than that. Give yourself a little bit of leeway here. That thinking is what's going to get you in trouble. This all or none thinking is what's going to get you in trouble, and to know that is like part of what's keeping them from making that next ascension. That's what bothers me. Mm-hmm. It's like, equanimity tells me I can't care more than they do. I get that, but man, if there was a way for me to come up with something that would stop that, that's what I'd spend my time on, because it happens so frequently. It doesn't have to happen, but it does. It happens a lot. If there was a way to just get in there and kind of just help them see it differently, man, I wish there was a way. I really do.
Right.
Because I've seen good people who put really good hard work, willing to like throw it all away for like that one line.
Right.
And it's like, dude, that one line doesn't erase 2-3 years of hard work.
Right.
If you just started rehab yesterday and you made it all 12 hours,
right.
All right, maybe we need to have a different conversation. But if you put anything over, like, I don't know, man, I'm going to say even a month, 2 months, because it can be very hard for people. If you made it that long, I think that's a different conversation. If you're still within like a week or two, then we need to reevaluate the approach that you're taking and figure out a different way. But if you put in at least 30, 40 days, 50 days or more, what you were doing was working. It's just something in there needs to be tweaked a little bit. A week, all right, it wasn't working. A week, maybe you just didn't have the time and the money. Who knows? But, a month or more, something was working. Just to build on that. Don't just throw it all away. That bothers me, dude. It really does.
Yeah, I think you have a right to be bothered by it. It bothers me, too. I don't like to see people get so frustrated and upset with themselves when they've struggled with sobriety or with staying away from it. And I definitely hate when people think they've thrown away all their clean days because they've used.
Yeah, like they disappear or something.
And I think that's where the lapse and relapse, I think, will kind of help them to understand it. If you went out one night and used, I think that you can pull back. I think, unfortunately, if you're that bothered by it, it's because you're still looking at it like a behavioral issue, an attitude issue. You're not looking at it as a disease because it's different to be angry at the disease than to be angry at yourself. For instance, we have a good friend that cancer. I mean, have you ever seen her post where cancer hasn't returned? Unfortunately, always.
Yeah, it sucks.
I hate it.
I don't know what to say when that happens.
Every time she has posted something and she's going in for another test, I think every single time she's done it, it's a bad test.
Yeah, I think so too.
At least it feels like it on my end.
It does.
And I hate it, but she gathers strength up and says, I got to go through this again. This F cancer.
Yeah.
Is what she says. Well, where's our F addiction? You know what I mean? Because that's what it really is. It's not FU.
Right.
It's not FU. It's F addiction, man. The problem is not that you didn't want it bad enough, or that you're an idiot, or that all that stuff. This disease is that powerful. And so if you can look at it like,
I don't want to come off like I'm mad at the person. I'm not.
No, I don't think you came off.
Okay.
Like that. No. What I'm saying is if you would just understand your own lapses and relapses, to know these are signs and symptoms that the disease is very powerful within you and very prevalent, then it allows you to adjust your treatment accordingly. Yeah. You still are a survivor, and you still have survived a certain amount of hours or a certain amount of days, months, weeks, whatever, years even in some cases, and you don't lose that time period. So much worked. So it's not like, it didn't work.
Exactly.
No, it did work.
That's what I'm saying.
It did work. The fact that you had 24 hours,
yeah,
then you knew something that worked for 24 hours. If you had a week, that means you gathered something, you figured out a way to make it work for a week. If you had a month, then you knew something that worked for a month. If you did a year, whatever it was, you obviously knew how to do something to work for that amount of period of time. So that's fantastic. Now what you're saying is I needed to work longer. Okay. But recovery is not going to be perfect for everybody. Recovery is not going to be without its scarring and without its issues. I extremely applaud people who are able to lapse and get out of it and still keep moving forward, and I think that's fantastic. Now, I think the fear of everybody is that if you call something a lapse from a relapse, then it kind of gives them an excuse and it makes people think it's okay to be able to use real quick. No, that's not what it does. Instead, what it does is it allows people that have lapsed to understand that that thing that you hear, the one is too many and 1,000 is not enough, that doesn't have to begin just because you used.
Right.
No. In other words, you can back away from that table right now. You just used right now, you can back away from the table right now, and you have lost very little if you back away from that table right away.
Yeah. Well, you know what it reminds me of in a way, and it's it just popped in my head actually. My son, he's 7 years old now,
right?
And I have this little Super Nintendo in the house, and it's got a bunch of games on it, and some of them are racing games, and he's like really into racing games, and he's into cars, fast things, and stuff. And so we'll be racing in a game, and he'll be trying to win. He's competitive. If he makes one mistake, he like loses his mind. He loses his mind. He gets all frustrated. He's like, I'm never going to catch up to these people, ever, ever, ever. And I'll show him, like, when I'm playing myself, I'll show, like, look, this is what you do. And as I'm going, maybe I'll make a mistake. I'll bump into a wall or something, and a bunch of cars pass me. And I'll say, it's okay. We still have 5 laps, dude. There's plenty of time to make up that thing. And then I'll keep going and trying to pass him, and I'll end up winning the whole race, even though I messed up in the beginning. Right. And so I liken it to that, trying to convince my son, like, it's okay. This one little mistake, right? It's a lapse, if you will.
100%.
You know, I didn't go around. I didn't wreck my car. I didn't turn around and go back the other way.
Right.
You know, I got off the track a little bit. I lost some speed. They all got in front of me.
Right.
It's okay. Get right back on and keep going. I can wear him down.
Yeah.
And I liken it to that because trying to convince my son that it's okay that you just bumped into a wall.
Yeah.
But he won't. He's like, he's 7. Yeah. He'll like, I'm never gonna catch. In his mind, it's like the end of the world. It's like, I'm never gonna catch him now because I did this one thing now.
And I'm sure that people that have had other chronic diseases like cancer, when it came back, they probably felt like, oh, I'm just gonna die from this. It just keeps coming back. And I'm sure.
Well, the one you mentioned, I can't imagine she doesn't feel that way. And you know what? I honestly don't know if I would blame her in this one because that is, it's devastating.
Right. But the key of having, life, the key of life is that if you have the opportunity to live it today, you're having the opportunity to do something that somebody that lost it yesterday doesn't have.
Living the dream.
Somebody 5 minutes ago lost their fight completely. And so if you came out of a lapse or relapse, that means you're still alive. You still have an opportunity to die victorious. You still have an opportunity to win this thing. So don't throw it away now. You didn't lose anything. What you did is you might have lost consecutive time, but who's calling time anyway? Who's you don't need to call
Who
time.
Wrote the book on that?
You don't need to focus on time. You need to focus more on, can I reach the next goal? And the goal shouldn't just be time. It should be other things. Like, I want to feel I want to love myself again.
Right.
I want to feel real proud of myself again. So I think I'm going to enroll in this school, and I'm going to complete 1 semester of classes. And so when you reach that goal, you say that was a cool goal. Yep. I did that. Those are physical measurements. You should have other things that are measurable rather than just consecutive clean time.
Yeah.
Consecutive clean time is not a necessity to live an enjoyable life. What is necessary to live an enjoyable life is you reach those marks that make you feel successful in other ways.
It's like my clients with the stupid scale.
Oh, my clients, like if they lose a little bit of weight and they gain a little bit of weight or something like that?
They'll have lost 10, 12 inches total.
Right.
They're sleeping better. They're feeling better.
Right.
They got more energy.
Right.
They're smiling and everything else, but the scales only move 2 pounds, and they're like upset. And the only way they measure it is through the scale. It's like, are you serious, man? Like, really, you have all these other measurable things that are making your life so much better, and you're focused on the one thing that really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and they're probably saying, well, God, I put so much time and effort into it, though.
Sure.
I put all this effort into it, and I only lost that? It's like, well, yeah.
But look at all the other things that you've gained.
Yeah.
So, but so I have here, I mentioned earlier, the 5 myths.
Oh, that's right.
I just Googled something real quick.
Okay, Google.
So the first one, they kind of do what you did, and they define lapse versus relapse.
Okay.
Right? They say there's a major difference between having one slip and having a relapse.
Right.
A lapse represents a temporary slip or return to a previous behavior that one is trying to control or quit, usually a one-time occurrence.
Right.
Whereas a relapse represents a full-blown return to a pattern of behavior that one has been trying to moderate or quit altogether. If someone is on a diet and trying to lose weight, they might have a lapse if they eat 1 piece of chocolate cake. If that same person gains 25 pounds while on their diet, they most likely suffered a relapse.
Right.
So they define it that way.
Okay.
So the first myth, It says, number one, all people with substance use disorders relapse.
Yeah, that is a myth.
I think that's a huge myth.
That is a huge
right?
myth. That is a huge myth. I think before you, because I'm assuming that you want to say something else about that.
No, go ahead.
All too often I hear that relapse is a part of recovery. And what I like to say is no. Relapse is part of the disease.
Yeah.
So anytime you lapse or relapse, that's part of the disease. Recovery is an up thing. It's a positive. You know what I mean? So relapse is going upward, and disease creeps in. So if you lapse or you have a relapse or lapse, then that is a definition of the disease, and that is part of the disease, not a part of recovery. But so during your recovery, you may suffer a lapse or relapse, but it's definitely part of the disease.
Yeah, I agree. I think that.
What else do they say?
I mean, I've heard you talk about it so many times, and I agree with that assessment.
Right.
I think that it doesn't have to be.
Right.
And I think that's the misconception.
There's a lot of people that never did, and those tend to be the biggest judges of other people's relapses, by the way. The people that go, well, once I did this, I didn't ever use again.
Yeah.
Or once your father decided to quit, he quit and never touched it again. Yeah, but he's still a jerk off. I think there's a lot of those.
Yeah, I think
there's a lot of those dry drunks out there that never drank again. But oh my God.
I think they sum it up pretty nice in this. There's a whole paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Yeah, don't do that.
It says, while relapse rates and recovery are high, it is not inevitable that every recovering addict will experience a relapse, and relapse is not unique to people with substance use disorders.
Right.
So I think they kind of summed it up there pretty well. Second myth, there's 5 of them.
Okay.
Second myth is you can only I think this is actually a pretty good one.
Okay.
This is myth, by the way. You can only relapse by using your drug of choice.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's actually a pretty good one.
Oh man, because
I remember, for me, that was an interesting conversation. When I first got into this world, I heard they were younger and they were new into the business or new into the recovery world. I was also new into the addiction world itself, so I listened more and spoke less. I was just trying to kind of take it all in.
I remember that
and understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I heard a lot of the younger kids coming in here.
Right.
Especially there's a few of them on my mind right now. They're like 18 years old.
Right.
Been on heroin for a while already. And they were still operating under the assumption that they were totally cool, still smoking weed, because heroin was their drug of choice, not weed.
Right.
And I remember not sitting right with me at the time, but once again, I listened more and talked less. I was just trying to understand things and understand the philosophy behind that. And I know somebody right now within my circle that is dealing with addiction at the moment and trying to get some clean time under their belt. And they went to rehab, and it was for heroin, but they still drink. Right. And they're saying, I didn't have a problem with alcohol. My problem was heroin. And I know somebody else kind of tried to back them up by saying, yeah, they never had a problem with alcohol. I was like, okay,
right.
All right, to each your own, I guess. But I obviously disagree with that assessment.
Sure.
But I think that is a huge myth, man. What is your response to that one?
Transference is a huge issue with addiction, period. I think a lot of people like to transfer one addiction to another, and I think all addicts, all people that consider themselves addicted to something, should educate themselves on what addiction really is and what dependence really is. I think all too often we like to measure it up to whatever drug that really, dragged us down. So if I compare everything to cocaine,
nothing seems bad anymore.
Yeah, I mean everything seems kind of cool. You know what I mean? Right. So I can't really compare the way one drug seems to operate within my brain and within my system. Right. And the problem wasn't the drug. I mean, by taking that philosophy, and it is a philosophy if you do that, because that's not reality. Disease is disease, right? So the disease is activated by all things addictive. So I have to continually make sure I keep everything else in check that it could be addictive in nature, meaning anything that I can develop tolerance to must be in check. For instance, I do like Monster energy drinks, right? But if I would drink more than one, that would be above any moderation. That's not moderation. If I would drink 2, or if I would drink 3, or I start drinking 4, because there is a tolerance that gets developed with caffeinated beverages.
Absolutely.
So, as a person in recovery and a responsible person in recovery and understanding the disease of addiction, I'm not going to allow a weak-ass drug like caffeine
to pull you down.
To pull me down.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be manipulated by THC, because THC, I loved pot.
Right.
And I'm not even going to put the D on it and the ED on it. I love because when I smell it, I still go, oh, man, I feel like Homer Simpson. It smells so good. But I'm not going to allow those drugs to even put me at risk to go back to cocaine when I may be focused on cocaine. But my problem is the disease of addiction. And I don't want anything else to do to me psychologically, spiritually, physically, or emotionally with my family or emotionally with myself to bring me into the kind of hole that I was. You know, cocaine's not the only one that can do it.
No, of course not.
Of course other things can do it. Gambling can do it. Sex can do it. Relationships can do it. Exercise can do it. Now, those may not look as bad, and you may think, well, yeah, but I can control those. Yeah, maybe now.
Yeah, now.
Maybe now. But if you did have the disease of addiction in any type, and for whatever reason, then those pathways have already been created. And therefore, your dopamine reward system has already been damaged to some degree. And therefore, what somebody else gets satisfied with, it's not sustainable for you. Yeah, you know, for instance, I jumped out of an airplane. And remember that? Remember when I jumped out at my 40th birthday? And when I landed, they knew exactly what to do. By the way, they're brilliant there, because the moment I landed,
upsell you again.
There was a lady there selling me another jump.
Of course.
The moment I land. Now, you're at your highest peak when you land, right? I just landed safely on the ground.
That's amazing.
And I didn't care if it was $1,000. As soon as they said, I was like, get the credit card. Hell yeah, I'm doing this again.
Absolutely.
I'm a drug addict. Now, I'm sure non-addicts, they're still in control. They feel really good, but they're like, you know, oh, that was really good. Yeah, but you know, responsibility kicks in. But for anybody that abuses
sure,
their pleasure impulses per second, or is addicted to pleasure impulses per second,
consequences, who cares?
I'm not even thinking about that. So that is the difference. You know, that is the real difference. Is look, if you got away from heroin and you're smoking pot and you say, yeah, but it's working for me, and I would say, you know what, God bless you, man. I'm not against marijuana, but I'm against you smoking marijuana.
Yeah.
If you're still drinking, I'm not against alcohol, but I'm against you drinking alcohol. And the only reason is because you've already proven to yourself that there's an issue within your brain that finds it difficult to regulate for the long haul.
Well, they sum it up in this article too, actually.
Okay.
Once again, it's a big paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
Okay.
It says a person who switches from cocaine to alcohol is not addressing their dysfunctional behavior and the issues that help shape that behavior. Right. But instead, they are simply substituting one dysfunctional coping method for another. Right. I think that kind of sums it up a little bit. Yeah. I think that there's always a risk, obviously, you know? Yeah. Like, you know, that behavior pattern kind of still is there.
Yeah, why'd you start using it in the first place?
Exactly.
I mean, what was it? I mean, what made use? I mean, why is it that important to you? You got to ask yourself, why is it that important for me to use something? Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly. Is it your fear that you're going to be a boring person? Your fear that life is going to be boring? Is it your fear that you're now going to have to think about things? You don't know how to deal with stress. You don't know how to deal with sadness. You don't have to deal with failure. You don't want to think about certain things. You don't even know how to just relax. You don't even know how to just be with yourself. Yeah, exactly. You know, like you were talking about on the ship, that you like to just be with yourself and just watch the waves.
Absolutely.
To somebody else, that's like hell.
Yeah. There was a point in my life it was hell, too.
So it's like. No, I have a chaotic life. I need something to shut out the chaos. Well, if you continue to look for something else to shut off the chaos or shut off those horrible memories,
you'll find it.
then how sustainable is a substance?
Exactly.
You know, and by the way, the answer is really in the use itself. The fact that you're willing to risk, going back to whatever you considered a demon or hell or horrible,
it's just not worth it, man.
By using this. That tells you what kind of value you just put on that. And I refuse to put that kind of level of importance on something like sugar, caffeine, marijuana, alcohol, anything that I consider inferior to cocaine. I refuse to make that stuff that important. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to make it that important, man.
All right, so here's another one. I think this is
you're on 3?
Yeah, number 3. Right. This is actually another pretty good one, I think.
All right.
All right, so the myth is those who relapse lack motivation.
Oh, jeez.
I think that's a pretty good myth as well.
Oh, jeez.
You know, and that the first thing that pops in my head was an individual that you're probably thinking of as well that really wanted it badly and ended up passing away from the disease.
Right.
You're not going to sit here and tell me he wasn't motivated, man.
No.
And I'm sorry.
No.
I don't know how many addicts people who are listening to this know, or if they remember. I have never met one yet that's like, oh, yeah, dude, life is great. I love this. I have not met one yet that isn't like extremely motivated to change some things. Right. That's like, I don't even know. That's like telling me, here we go. I'll use it more of a fitness example. That's like telling me the overweight person eating a donut just doesn't want it.
Right.
You really? You're gonna tell me overweight people I've dealt with over the years, and every last one of them had so much low self-esteem and felt horrible, hated the looks, hated the self-hatred, hated everything, and didn't want that life at all anymore. Yeah, willing to scrape together whatever they can to pay me to help them. Tried every diet you can think of. I think they're the most motivated people. Yeah, they're just unsuccessful at it. Doesn't mean they're not motivated. Yeah. And the same thing for the relapse. You're not gonna tell me they don't want it. They might not have been successful, but they want it. Like that's like saying, right now there's an NBA Finals going on. You got LeBron and them. Sadly, might end up getting swept tonight. Hopefully not. But if I'm a betting man, I'm gonna say yes. Yeah. You're gonna tell me LeBron doesn't want it? You know, he's not motivated. Yeah. Of course he is, man. He went up against a better team tonight. Right. You know, and the disease is a formidable opponent. You know. Not
only that, but it has the inside scoop. Yeah. It's a brain disease. So you know you're trying to use your brain against your brain.
Exactly.
Your brain. Good luck, bro. Your brain knows more about you than you do. For instance, how many memories you think you have compared to your brain's memories? Right. If you think you can beat your brain, you are crazy already, because that brain right there has every little memory you've ever experienced, and it can throw up so many good times into your head and so many good memories about, remember when we used to like this, remember when we used to do this? It can glorify stuff real powerful, because it can just keep on pulling up these images of glorification, and you'll forget all about, wait a minute, I told myself no matter what memory I had, no matter how good it sounds, no matter who I was with, that I wasn't going to use again. I told myself I was, you know what I mean? That jailhouse kind of thinking where you make all these promises and then you come out and you forget everything you promised yourself. Listen, this disease has the inside track. I know they're motivated. Addicts are motivated to want to. There's no. Listen, have you ever tried to get in the way of an addict's drugs? You ever try to get in the way of someone getting high? This is the most persistent human on the planet. This is the only person on the planet that can walk into any house and tell you exactly the value of everything, including the toaster. They know every value of everything they walk around. It's a mind that is completely obsessed. It's obsessed with self-destruction. It's obsessed with running away. It's obsessed with hiding. It's obsessed with manipulating the situation to just get high. That is hard. That's a lot of noise. So it's not that they're not motivated to get clean. It's just there's so much other noise going on. And they have not mastered how to quiet some of that noise down. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of years and a lot of different methods and trying a lot of different things to find out what works for them, because one thing doesn't work for everybody. Everybody's different, and it takes a lot to win that victory, to kind of be able to quiet down long enough for that snow globe, for all the snow to kind of settle, right? So you can think clearly again.
Well, there's one thing that I'll say, and I say it oftentimes within the groups and stuff. There's an exercise that I typically do with them to help them see that they already have the skills necessary, essentially. Right. Okay. So what I do is I try to have them come up with all the different reasons why they think they might fail. Right. Every excuse they could possibly imagine. And then they categorize them. And then the next step is I want them to write down any of their strengths and skills that they have. All of them. You know, I'm a good listener, or whatever it may be. And one of the skills that I make sure, how that comes full circle basically, is then I teach them how to use those skills to help those problems, basically. Right. But I tell them the skills part is where they all usually have a hard time. They're sitting around with like, and so I tell them, I'll say, okay, look, every single person in this room right now, I want you all to write down strong-willed, motivated, tenacious. And I said, I don't know any of you guys. I just met a lot of you. Yeah. But you know how I know
they have it.
You know how I know you have that? And they're all like, what do you mean? I was like, is there anybody in this room right now that I couldn't drop off in the middle of some strange city with no money?
Still get high.
And no communication. You still couldn't get what you wanted by the end of the day? Right. And they're all like, oh, yeah. Exactly. I was like, yeah, you are some of the most motivated people I've ever met.
Absolutely.
We just need to redirect it.
Absolutely.
You know? So on here, they sum it up with a really good quote, actually, I think. And it was from a Rudolph Hatfield. And the quote is, Thomas Edison often stated that he failed over 1,000 times before he finally developed a working light bulb. That type of fortitude can only be maintained by a person that is highly motivated to succeed.
That's right.
So yeah, I think that
that's right.
I don't think just because they relapsed, they're not motivated.
Yeah, and that's why when people, that same thing that you just said, when people say, I don't like I'm not a group person, and I need to do this on my own. Well, you didn't get here on your own. I mean,
No.
you know how to use people to get high.
Exactly.
You know how to use drug dealers. You know how to use people to get you money. You know how to use you know how to use covers. You know how to get rides. Yeah. I mean,
right.
You know how to find a place to sleep. I mean, you're so skilled at being able to use people. So why wouldn't you use people to get clean?
Yeah.
I mean,
dude, I've seen cigarette smokers go out in like the pouring monsoon rain to get 2 seconds of a hit of a cigarette.
I did it when I smoked.
That's extremely motivated,
dude.
bro.
I did it when I smoked, man. I use that all the time when I speak. It says, man, you know what? You know what addiction is when you're going out into the snow. When you're asleep. You're in bed. You're comfortable, but you stayed up just 5 seconds too long.
Sure.
And you shouldn't have ate that last potato chips because all of a sudden now you got to smoke again. And you're like, oh, man. And you had to run out in that snow.
That's ridiculous, man.
Just to take a couple of hits off a cigarette and just run back inside. I hated that.
So, all right. So the fourth one I have.
Fourth one.
Because believe it or not, we're actually starting to run out of time. We only got about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, whatever.
And for us, that's not a lot of time.
Yeah.
All right. So number 4. Relapse means treatment has failed. That means if you relapse, then that means all the treatment you had was a failure.
Oh, Jesus. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not, because if you had any moment, again, if you had 24 hours clean, you were successful 24 hours. If you had a week clean, you were successful for a week. If you had a month clean, you were successful for a month, a year, on and on and on and on. No, it has not failed. It may need to be adjusted a little bit, may need to be tweaked a little bit.
The words that they use.
Yeah, but it didn't fail. It just requires some tweaking.
Well, it was.
Is that what they said?
Basically, that's what they say. But my whole interpretation even is, it didn't fail. We just failed to apply it, which isn't a big deal. We'll figure it out. We'll go back to the drawing board. I remember individuals who've come through the groups. I remember at Tropical one time, we had somebody who came through there that was like their 11th or 12th time in rehab. And one of the questions I would always talk to them was like, why is this one different?
Right.
And I was like, I got into that discussion a lot, actually, where a lot of them were like, all these other rehabs were so bad. I was like, no, they weren't, man. They all have their benefits and their positive qualities. Right. The difference is you got to be teachable. You got to be in a moment where you're actually ready to listen and understand and learn this, and you're not fighting it all the time.
Right.
And so, not to say that there aren't probably some bad treatment programs out there. We both know they exist. But I think that once again, it's a brain disease. So you got to kind of figure out a way to navigate that and become teachable and actually retain the information as well.
Right.
And so that doesn't mean that the program itself is garbage.
Right.
It just means that we need to figure out a different way to talk to you.
Right.
I go back. I don't think they use it anymore, but I go back to the idea of the 3 learning things: audio, visual, and kinetic. I need to hear it, I need to see it, and I need to do it.
Right.
If you got two, and this is actually a big debate I've been into in my life. Actually, I one of my arguments is I always say that everybody has the same level of intelligence. I think that just we apply it differently, we learn differently. But the capability to learn and the capability to apply, I think we all have it.
Yeah.
But the difference is, if we're sitting here listening to a teacher teach, and I'm an audio learner and you're a visual learner, and they're using charts and graphs, you're going to pick it up faster. Doesn't mean you're smarter than I am. It just means that's the way you learn best. So you're going to pick it up faster than I did. Doesn't mean I'm incapable of learning it. And so, like, if you're going to a treatment program and the treatment program is, let's just say, filled with a bunch of like Gomer Piles, and you don't take them seriously, you don't respect them, none of them are in recovery, none of them have any stories to tell, then you're likely to be turned off by that and not really take them seriously because you didn't connect.
Right.
Doesn't mean the facility's bad. That just means they didn't speak in a way that you're going to listen.
Right.
So maybe the next facility you go to, they have other people who are kind of more of your ilk, if you will, that you can kind of relate to. Then you're more apt to listen to them.
Yeah.
And you're more apt to let them in and make that connection with them and build that rapport.
I agree.
Doesn't mean treatment itself is bad. It just means it wasn't the right one for you, or it didn't speak to you the way you needed to be spoken to.
Right.
So, relapse to me does not mean treatment has failed, basically, is what I was getting at.
All right, so what's the fifth one?
The fifth and final one says, this is funny. I promise you I did not read this much before we went on. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing.
Okay.
Number 5, when relapse occurs, all progress is lost. So that was really literally what we started with.
Right.
Let me see what they said. If we go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's just silly.
Yeah,
it's just silly, and it's the self-esteem issues. it's we suffer some severe self-esteem issues when we the disease of addiction just destroys people's self-esteem.
Yeah.
And many people before they had a substance use disorder already had low self-esteem, and that's where substances initially probably were helping them feel confident and helping them feel good about themselves. So that's why we developed that relationship with drugs and alcohol. But then it stopped working. It wasn't really sustainable, and therefore now the self-esteem issues are still there. And every time you come down, you feel like crap. And that's why you say, well, no, I feel good when I'm drinking. I feel good when I'm high. I feel good when I'm stoned. I feel good when I'm but this happens.
Yeah.
That's not sustainable. You can't stay up here.
No.
You have to come down. And so if life sucks down, well, then you're going to crash one day.
Yeah.
And it's just where it is. What are you thinking on it?
Yeah, I mean, that's just I don't know, man. It goes right back to what we started the show with, man. Yeah. That is one of my biggest pet peeves is that mentality.
That you lose it.
Yeah, not even just in recovery. I mean,
anything.
I've had clients in the fitness world who will gain a pound, or maybe they'll overindulge, and overconsume on one day,
right.
and they like. Actually, you know what? Matter of fact, in the health and fitness world, I think they're even more guilty of it. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think in the fitness world, the people I've seen, they're
more than drug and alcohol.
Absolutely, dude.
It's the same people.
No,
in the health and fitness world, it's the same people. Some of them are addicted to sugars and addicted to other
and that's
stuff.
what I mean.
So they're still addicts.
The
just
things
a different drug of choice.
The two stereotypes that I've seen thousands of times at this point in my career, the two I see most often are the whole ones that'll say, "I'll start on Monday," in today's Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll start on Monday.
Mañana nunca viene.
I want to make sure I get the rest of this weekend and eat all this junk before I start.
Yeah, who doesn't?
And the other one I see a lot, way, way too much of, is, let's say I'm supposed to have X amount of food, or,
right.
not to get into too much of the macros and stuff. Let's just say I'm not supposed to have cake or something. I don't know. Or chips. There we go.
Right.
I'm not supposed to have chips. It's part of my new diet, whatever.
Right.
Which I would never recommend, by the way. But
thank you. I love it.
So they have one chip.
Huh?
They have one chip.
Yeah, good luck with that.
And then they're like, that was good. But I'm not supposed to have any chips. Well, I already had one chip. Might as well eat the entire bag now.
Well, that's why I said the lapse and relapse.
Yeah. Might as well go ahead and eat the whole bag now.
Yep.
And then you eat the whole bag. And then you're like, well, I've already blown my diet.
Yep.
So let me forget it. I'll go ahead and have the pizza and ice cream and everything else. I've already blown it.
Yep.
Well, today's already shot. It's only Tuesday. I'll start again on Monday.
Yeah.
So now the whole rest of the week, you know what I mean?
And that's exactly what happens with drugs and alcohol. Man. That's exactly what happens, because if people say, if my probation officer is gonna look at it like, I'm already gonna fail the drug test.
Yeah.
So I might as well
just go
get high, or just not even go to probation. You know how many friends I have that they failed probation because they just didn't go?
Yeah.
They're gonna put me in jail, so I'm just not even gonna go. So I literally, and if you're watching this, you know who you are. You just didn't even do what probation told you to do. And then now you're a fugitive from this country.
You know what, though?
There's people like this.
Hold on.
That's the brain, and the brain can really do that to you.
What if we use that same philosophy against people just to show how ridiculous this is?
Oh, boy.
What if the next time you were at a grocery store,
okay,
and the person at the grocery store was like, I know the sign says it's $6, but it's so close to 10. I'm gonna go ahead and just charge you the whole 10. I mean, it's so close. You already gave me the 6. I'm gonna go ahead and just give me 10.
Right.
How many people would argue that one?
Right.
Like, no, it says 6. I'm gonna pay you 6, not 10.
Right.
Same concept, man. It's ridiculous.
No.
This whole
no,
it's so dumb, man.
It's or if I'm gonna even get closer to what we're talking about. It's like if somebody, if you accidentally bump somebody and they say no, it's okay. Well, then punch them.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
I already assaulted you.
Yeah.
So I might as well fully assault you.
Yeah, I already bumped into you.
You know what? I might as well shoot you.
Yeah.
I might as well kill you.
Yeah.
Because I'm already going to go to jail for assaulting you.
Yeah.
So I mean, we continue. We
fill in that narrative, man.
Oh, we fill in a serious narrative, man. But it's all based on the disease wants to be fed. There's a plant, literally like the plant in your head going, feed me, Seymour, feed me, Seymour.
Feed me.
And when that thing is saying, feed me, it's hard to not feed it.
Yeah.
It's hard to not feed it, especially if you haven't built your life and structured your life around feeling better, and you haven't surrounded around people that are really loving you for you, and you haven't nurtured you. If you haven't nurtured you and new goals and new desires, then you're already, like what we would call in the rooms, you're already on the edge of the bed.
Yeah.
You're already on the edge of the bed, so don't be shocked if you fall off the bed if you sleep on the edge. I never sleep right on the edge.
Right.
I sleep. There's some inches, man. There's a good 8 to 10 inches between me and the edge, because I have to be able to turn sideways and not fall off.
Well, okay, so on I'm gonna go ahead and take a tip from Dharma time here for a second.
Go ahead.
And that is, so let's go ahead and help somebody. Like if they're thinking, well, how do we prevent relapse then? So I'll tell you mine, and then you can give me yours.
Go ahead.
One of the things I would always say, first of all, that's why I did that little exercise with them. Because it was funny because they all treated like some test, and they were trying to get on. I was like, look, guys, I'm not collecting this. This is strictly for you.
Right.
And I kid you not, I literally had somebody reach out to me months later and say, you know what? Because I tell them all that, once again, we come up with the problems, we come up with the skills, and we come up with a plan to use those skills for those problems. Hint, you already have everything necessary to achieve this. And I said, and I'm not collecting this. This is yours. Take it and put it in your toolbox. Right. And maybe at some point you'll find yourself in the middle of it and realize, like, wait a minute, I've already gone over this.
Right.
And I had one person literally reach out to me. He's like, you know what? I remember I had that in some folder somewhere. He dug it out. And he reminded him, and it moved him in the right direction. And so that's one of the things I would say to everybody before they left. When I knew people were getting out of the rehab and I knew they were almost done, I say, that's great, man. You have a plan. You got with your person. You got a plan. And they said yes. I said, great. Now, what's your plan when that fails? Right. And they're like, what? It's like, yeah. I'm not saying it will, but it will. Like, life doesn't care what your plan is. You have to have some sort of a backup, if you will. And I think that's the answer. Is I think, to me, you almost plan a relapse, right? Like, to me, I think you plan for that potential inevitability. What am I going to do? How am I going to address the situation? Not to say you're trying to do a self-fulfilling prophecy here where you make it happen, but you got to plan for the unplannable. You got to plan for the fact of, like, hey, this might not work for me. What do I do then? When this stuff happens, when life gets difficult, what's my support system? What's my accountability? How do I do this? Because I think it's irresponsible to think that you nailed it.
Right.
I think it's irresponsible to walk out of 30 days saying, I'm done. I'm cured. Regardless of what that idiot says on TV, how you're cured. I think it's irresponsible to do that, and I think it's irresponsible for the treatment team to allow you to do that. Right. I think that you have to approach it by saying, what if? Right. What am I going to do when the worst case scenario happens? How do I respond to that? And to me, I think that's probably one of the better ways of avoiding relapse, is to approach it head on and try to address it before it happens. That would be my take on it, I guess.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna start with that, where you're at with that, just to not backtrack to the same kind of point. That what's important to understand is that every time we do some sort of plan for our recovery, anytime we have some sort of, even in your world of dietary stuff or physical fitness or anything, people have a goal, right? So, but you also have reservations, things that you're not willing to do. And you'll hear me say reservations a lot because we all tend to have things that we're like, I'll do everything but that. I don't want to. I just don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So what I tell people is just, all right, just so you know that whatever plan you do activate, just know whatever you're not willing to do right now, just write that down somewhere and say that's the next. If my plan does not work, I'm going to do that.
I like that.
So know up front that you're going to have to do what you don't want to do if it doesn't work.
I like that.
Okay? So that way, that's extra motivation because I don't want to do that. I just,
I really like that, actually.
So that's one thing. So that's the contingency plan. That's the plan B thing. Now, the other stuff is if you want to avoid relapses and lapses or whatever. This is where I'm going to go with it. We all know that we only tilt when we're off balance. I don't fall down if I'm off balance. If I'm unbalanced. If I'm balanced, I don't fall. I can withstand weight. I can pick up heavier weight. I can withstand someone pushing me. Whatever my balance is, whether I'm in a fighting mode or whether I'm driving something, riding something, trying to do something, balance is key. I could do more in balance than I can off balance.
Sure.
So take that and understand that when you're off balance, like if you were low on balance psychologically, if you were already depressed and you were feeling bad about yourself, then you were already off balance, and therefore it was easier to tip you over by substances going bad for you. If you were off balance spiritually and you really didn't have a reason to live and you really didn't have a purpose in your life, well, then it's much easier to tip you into use. If you were if you were already off balance physically and not doing physically well, then you were already not that already affected you, because when you're not physically well, then it affects your psychology, it affects the way you feel about life, and therefore you're off balance. If you are not well physiologically, if your health is not good, if on the inside all the chemistry is not going right, then you're already off balance. And let me tell you something, it's easier for the substance to come in and make you feel really good for the moment. So, all that being said, physical. Concentrate on something physical that you're doing that you weren't doing before. When you were using, think of something physical that you stopped doing because you started using or because the use took over. So do something physical. Do something psychological, whatever that is. Talking is psychological. Drawing, something artistic. Emotions are only expressed through art, right? Or speaking, right? Which can be an art. So you want to draw, you want to write, you want to paint, you want to sculpt, you want to do something artistically. You want to do something like that, and that gets that out. Spiritually, purpose, man. You have to have some sort of purpose of why you get up in the morning. If it's all about just getting up, going to work, staying clean, so you don't go back to jail or you don't get harped on by these people, then you're not really living for any purposes except to get away with something. And if all you're living for is to get away with something, eventually you're going to convince yourself you can do it this time and get away with it. And then boom, there goes the cycle again. So something spiritual. Doesn't mean it has to be religious, but it does mean it has to be bigger than you. And then, of course, finally, let me see. I said physical. Nutrition. I said psychological. Exactly.
The four quadrants.
Yep,
I remember.
Yep. The physiological. You have to deal with the inside. Something you put inside your body. Something nutritional, something physiological. You have to deal with the internal chemistry. And if you're off internally, for instance, this is where the medical comes in. If your serotonin level is off and you need an antidepressant, then you need an antidepressant. If you're off and you're not eating right and you keep eating junk food, you're not going to be feeling right. You're just still going to feel sluggish. And if you feel sluggish, it might affect your mood and your attitude and your sense of life, and therefore you're still off balance. So balance is key. You stay in balance, I promise you'll stay as healthy as you can be. And it's easy to measure when you break it up into those four things: physical, psychological, spiritual, and physiological or nutritional. If you're dealing with the four quadrants, and you're keeping them in balance, it's how the earth stays in balance. It's no different than you. If the earth stays in balance that way, guess what? You're part of this earth. You stay in balance that way. So that's it. That's what I would say, Trinity. Anyway, final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I mean, I just I kind of echo all that, right? Because I'm surprised we didn't mention a lot of that on our happiness show for Dharma time. I'm surprised we didn't mention any of that. Like I that's such a good way of going about it. Mm-hmm. But I think that is the key, is balance, man. Right. Even with coming up with a plan, you got to balance your expectations with reality. Right. I think it always comes back down to balance. The yin with the yang. Right. You can have all the hope in the world, but if you don't have some sort of a plan to back up that, or some sort of plan to counteract the inevitable kind of variables in life that you can't control, you're doomed to fail, man. Right. And so I think balance is key. And I agree with you 100% with the spirituality thing. I think that oftentimes it does kind of all revolve around a mindset. Right. You got to have the proper mindset. Right. This mindset of, I'm done. I got 30 days. That's the wrong mindset to have. Right. This mindset of, life is going to be great and awesome now. That's the wrong mindset to have. Right. The idea that life is going to be horrible, that's the wrong mindset to have. Like, it's all about mindset, I think. And that I think too many times we get sidetracked, especially in today's day and age. Mm-hmm. Internal personal growth isn't as celebrated as I think it should be. And so I think sometimes we get out of that habit of growing, right, and addressing those four quadrants. Right. I think we get complacent and we just assume it's just good. We
get busy.
And we kind of move on with our lives, and we forget that how important that really truly is.
Yeah. I mean, listen, many of us, we call something important until we realize how much time we're not spending on it, and we realize, I say it's important, but my action is not showing it. Yep. My actions do not speak to what I believe in. In other words, I hate liars, yet I'm lying. Right. So I have this philosophy that I believe in truth, and this world sucks because it's lying and it's hurting and it can't be trusted. Yet I'm the one that can't be trusted, and I'm the one lying. Therefore, do you really believe in that? No, you don't really believe in that. So you got to get back to your belief system and figure that out and work on that and kind of break it down to more reality instead of fiction. Yeah, man. And so with all that said, that's it, right? I think that's all we got.
Got like 60 seconds.
All right, so adios, amigos. It's time for a taco. Goodbye.
And that was without even a single drop of rum.
That was awesome.